Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're going deep on a topic that's close to all of us, I think. How to win at home.
Hmm.
Not in a competitive way, of course.
Right.
But, how to build those strong relationships.
Yeah.
That feeling of warmth and connection. That rock-solid support system, even when life gets a little crazy.
It's definitely more challenging than people realize, I think.
Absolutely. And we have a fantastic source to help us unpack all of this today. A conversation with Bishop T.D. Jakes and his wife, Sarita,
Okay.
from the 2023 International Leadership Summit. Now, I know what you might be thinking, another power couple sharing their secrets.
Yeah.
But trust me on this one. It's different.
Oh.
They get real, they're funny, and they don't shy away from the tough stuff. In fact, right out of the gate, they dive into the pressures of public life and how
Wow.
those pressures can affect even the most seemingly perfect relationships.
It's so true. I think we often put successful people on a pedestal, assuming their lives are problem-free. But the Jakes remind us that everyone faces relationship challenges.
Yeah, like that story Sarita tells about furnishing their first home. They were on a tight budget,
Oh, yeah.
so they headed to Goodwill and the Salvation Army.
It's a great reminder that home isn't about having fancy things.
Right. It's not about having it all together on the surface.
Exactly. It's about intentionality, creating a space that feels like yours.
Absolutely. And they go on to challenge this whole idea that marriage equals constant happiness.
Yeah, they really push back on that fairy tale notion, don't they?
They do. They say that real strength in a relationship comes from weathering those storms together.
They even use this great analogy of holding onto a motorcycle during a sharp turn.
Oh, I like that.
You have to hold on tight when things get bumpy.
That's such a vivid image. It really underscores the importance of resilience.
Yeah, it's not about avoiding those tough times, but about facing them together.
As a team.
Exactly. And they take this idea of teamwork even further when they talk about family as a support group.
A support group. That's an interesting way to put it.
Instead of viewing family as a source of pressure and expectation,
Right.
they encourage us to shift our perspective, to see family as a source of unconditional love and acceptance.
That makes me think about the story Sarita shares about her friend's 103-year-old mother.
Yes, even in the midst of chaos and change, those genuine connections can be so grounding.
Okay, now this is where things take a bit of an unexpected turn.
Hmm.
Bishop Jakes starts talking about the little girl within his wife, Sarita. He even calls her Sir Drinky.
Sidrinky.
Yes, it's playful, right?
Yeah.
But it points to something much deeper. He's saying that no matter how accomplished a woman becomes, there's still that core identity that needs nurturing.
It reminds us to see our loved ones beyond their roles and achievements.
Beyond those external labels, to connect with the essence of who they are at their core.
Absolutely.
And speaking of understanding each other's needs, Bishop Jakes is very specific about how he experiences love. As a man, he spells it out, R-E-S-P-E-C-T.
That's a classic example of what we call love languages.
Right. The unique ways each of us gives and receives love.
And what I find interesting is that even when Sarita disagrees with him during this conversation, she never calls him out by name.
It's a subtle but powerful sign of respect.
It shows that respect isn't just about grand gestures. It's about those smaller, everyday actions.
Okay, get ready for this next bit because it's pretty intense. Bishop Jakes uses the image of AK-47 mouths to describe the damage words can inflict.
Especially within families.
Yes, and while his language is strong, it makes a vital point. Words have power and they can leave scars.
That's so true, especially within families.
But he doesn't leave us on a negative note.
Okay.
He balances that warning with a message of hope and unity. He talks about the importance of teamwork, particularly when dealing with challenges outside the family.
It's about presenting a united front, having each other's backs when facing the world.
He even shares this incredible story about Sarita coming to his defense during a heated argument. It took him by surprise, but it really illustrates the depth of their bond.
It shows that love isn't always about sweet words, but sometimes about that fierce loyalty and protectiveness.
Exactly. And that brings us to another key takeaway. Parenting. Bishop Jakes really pushes back against what he calls performance-based love.
What does he mean by that?
He's saying that we should love our children unconditionally, regardless of their choices or achievements,
It's about creating a safe space for them to be themselves.
without fear of judgment or rejection.
Yes, it's about accepting them for who they are, not who we want them to be.
And it's powerful coming from him because he's so honest about his own imperfections.
It's a reminder that none of us are perfect, but our capacity to love shouldn't be contingent on perfection.
Whether it's our own perfection or our children's.
Exactly. And this leads to a very powerful realization. He says that all the success in the world means nothing if we neglect our relationships.
He argues that investing in family is the most important investment we can make.
And to really drive that home, he uses this incredibly powerful image. $1 billion can't wipe your mouth. It's about recognizing what truly matters at the end of the day.
It's about those fundamental human needs for care and connection.
Needs that money can't buy.
And then he describes family as the gymnasium of love, which is, I think, brilliant.
Love that.
It reframes those family challenges, those messy, frustrating moments as opportunities for growth.
Like a workout for our hearts and souls.
Exactly. It's where we learn resilience, forgiveness, and the profound depth of human connection.
And Sarita adds to this so beautifully when she describes feeling her children's faces after surgery.
Oh, yes.
She says it felt like heaven. It really captures the intensity of that emotional bond between a mother and her children.
It speaks to that primal, instinctive love.
And it reminds us that even amidst the messiness and chaos of family life, there are moments of pure, transcendent love.
Okay, get ready for this next part because it's pure gold. Bishop Jake shares this mantra he adopted from Andy Young, the civil rights leader. And it's basically a blueprint for communication and conflict resolution.
I'm all ears.
He says, speak without being offensive. Listen without being defensive, and always leave your opponent with their dignity, even in disagreement.
Wow. Those are words to live by.
Aren't they? And they apply to so much more than just romantic relationships. It's a framework for approaching any type of conflict with respect and understanding.
I love that. And you know what? It reminds me of something else he talks about.
Oh.
The nature of disruption. He says that when we pray for growth, God often answers with disruption.
Oh, that's interesting.
But the key, he says, is to not let that disruption become a distraction.
I see what you mean. It's about reframing those challenges as opportunities for growth.
Exactly. And it's within that idea of disruption that Bishop Jakes acknowledges how much he relies on Sarita's strength and support.
Yeah. He talks about her calming presence and how much he values her role in his life.
It's clear that their differences, rather than dividing them, actually make their relationship stronger.
They complement each other so well, each bringing their own unique strengths and perspectives to create a more balanced dynamic.
Okay, get ready for this one because it's both funny and insightful. Bishop Jakes observes that men and women communicate very differently.
Oh, how so?
He uses this phrase, men speak in sign language while women are more verbal.
He's definitely got a point there.
It's a lighthearted way of saying that we often need to look beyond just the words being spoken.
Pay attention to those subtle cues and nonverbal forms of communication.
Exactly. It's about being more mindful and attuned to those subtler forms of expression. And that's actually a great segue into the next part of their conversation,
Oh.
where things get a bit more personal.
Oh, okay.
You mean when he starts talking about the pain of watching his daughter go through a difficult divorce?
Yes, exactly. It's a reminder that even the strongest families face challenges.
And sometimes those we love most experience profound hurt and loss.
And it's powerful how Bishop Jakes doesn't shy away from that raw emotion.
Right. He acknowledges the pain, the disappointment, and even the sense of helplessness. It's a message of empathy and understanding.
And it reminds us that we can't always shield our loved ones from pain.
But we can offer them our unwavering love and support as they navigate those challenges.
And that leads to another powerful observation he makes.
What's that?
He says that we often show more grace to the people we serve than to the people we love.
Wow. That's really thought-provoking, isn't it?
It is. And it's a challenge to all of us to examine our own behavior.
To make sure we're extending that same level of compassion and understanding to our families.
To those who are closest to our hearts.
Because at the end of the day, those are the relationships that matter most.
Exactly. And that brings us to the end of this first part of our deep dive. But don't worry, there's much more to come in part 2.
Can't wait.
Stay tuned.
So we were talking about the importance of investing in those relationships that matter.
Right. The ones that'll be there for us in the long run.
He even uses this really powerful image. He says, $1 billion can't wipe your mouth.
It really puts things in perspective, doesn't it?
It does. No amount of success can replace those basic human needs.
Like care and connection.
Exactly. And he goes on to say that building a family is the hardest thing he's ever done.
Harder than building churches? Harder than negotiating billion-dollar deals?
It really speaks to the profound yet complex nature of family life.
Doesn't it? And I appreciate that he doesn't sugarcoat it.
Right.
He's upfront about his own imperfections.
Yeah, he owns his flaws and mistakes.
But he remains committed to the journey.
That's what matters. And he emphasizes the importance of valuing our partners,
Oh, yeah.
making sure they feel seen and appreciated.
Remember that really raw moment
Yeah.
when he says to Sarita, "If in all these years I have not been proved in some way to be valuable to you, how dare you discredit my worth with your ambition?"
It's a powerful statement.
It is. And then he talks about how he would clap for her, create a stage for her, open doors for her, and die for her. But he draws the line at disrespect.
That's an important distinction, isn't it?
It is. It shows that true love doesn't mean sacrificing your self-respect.
Or allowing yourself to be mistreated
It's about setting healthy boundaries.
and communicating your needs.
Which brings us back to that point about how men spell love.
RESPECT.
Exactly. It's a reminder that for many men, feeling respected is a fundamental need.
It's how they feel valued and appreciated.
And it's not just about grand gestures.
Right.
It's those smaller, everyday acts of consideration.
Like really listening to your partner,
Valuing their opinions,
acknowledging their contributions
treating them as an equal.
in the relationship and in life.
And that leads into another one of those funny but insightful observations.
Mm.
Remember when he talks about how men speak in sign language?
Oh, yeah. Well, women are more verbal.
Exactly. It's a lighthearted way of saying that communication is about more than just words.
Sometimes we have to look beyond the words themselves.
To those nonverbal cues.
The tone of voice,
Body language.
those unspoken moments of understanding,
Right. And then he shares this really sweet story about Sarita passing out.
and how he insisted on riding in the ambulance with her.
Even though the paramedics told him he could follow in the car.
That's so sweet.
It's a great example of his devotion.
His instinct to be there for her.
To support and comfort her no matter what.
It really speaks to that idea of partnership,
Being a team.
facing those challenges together.
And then he makes this point about how life is just hard sometimes.
Yeah, he doesn't shy away from that reality.
And it takes both partners working together to navigate those difficulties.
To support each other through those tough times.
He also reminds us that even when we make mistakes,
Or experience setbacks.
we still have value.
Our worth isn't defined by our failures.
Exactly.
It's about our inherent value as human beings.
And this leads to another important point he makes.
About modeling those healthy relationship dynamics for our children.
He talks about how his son learned to be a caretaker by watching him care for his mother.
That's so powerful.
It really shows how much our actions influence our kids.
They're always observing us, learning from us.
And he brings back that incredibly poignant message.
$1 billion can't wipe your mouth.
Right. It's a reminder to prioritize those relationships that truly enrich our lives.
The ones that provide meaning and purpose.
The ones that will be there for us when we need them most.
And then he circles back to that beautiful analogy of family as the gymnasium of love.
Oh, I love that analogy.
It's where we develop those crucial relationship muscles.
Where we learn to be more resilient,
More forgiving.
more understanding.
It's where we experience the full spectrum of human emotion.
And Sarita adds to this beautifully with her story about feeling her children's faces after surgery.
She described it as feeling like heaven.
It's such a pure expression of that motherly love.
That instinct to nurture and protect.
He even describes it as a mama moment, a womb moment, a carrying them in my body moment.
It's beautiful. And then he shits gears a bit.
Yeah.
He starts talking about the pain that many sons carry
What he calls mama hurt.
from feeling misunderstood or neglected by their mothers,
It's a reminder that family wounds can run deep.
and that those early experiences can have a lasting impact.
He acknowledges that he, too, is flawed and imperfect as a father.
But he emphasizes his deep love for his children.
And he reassures them that he would never be jealous of their success or happiness.
It's a powerful message of acceptance and unconditional love.
And he encourages those who have experienced father hurt to find healing and support.
To find that sense of belonging in a loving community.
And then he does something really beautiful.
What's that?
He asks Sarita to lead the audience in prayer
Acknowledging her spiritual strength.
and inviting those who are missing their mother's voices to receive it in her voice.
It's such a powerful gesture. And he describes her as this incredible force.
A woman who has literally woken up in the middle of the night and gotten up out of a sick bed and rebuked devils off of our kids.
Of course, he's speaking metaphorically,
Right.
but it captures that fierce, protective energy that mothers have.
That unwavering devotion to their children's well-being.
And then he shares this really sweet detail about their relationship.
What's that?
He talks about how she sleeps with her hand at his back.
Oh, that's so cute.
It's a subtle but constant reminder of her presence and support.
Even in the middle of the night.
It speaks to that deep sense of intimacy and connection,
And he brings us back to that theme of winning at home.
making a clear distinction.
He says winning at home is not about winning on stage.
It's about recognizing that true fulfillment doesn't come from external validation.
It's about prioritizing those intimate, loving connections that nourish our souls.
And then he talks about how building a family is the hardest thing he's ever done.
Harder than all those accomplishments and accolades.
It speaks to the immense effort and dedication required to build a strong, healthy family unit.
And I appreciate how he's honest about his own imperfections in that process.
He doesn't claim to have all the answers.
He's a work in progress, just like the rest of us.
And he stresses the importance of valuing our partners,
Making sure they feel seen and appreciated.
not letting our ambitions overshadow their importance.
He says to Sarita, if in all these years I have not been proved in some way to be valuable to you, how dare you discredit my worth with your ambition?
It's a powerful reminder that our partners deserve our respect and admiration.
They're not just along for the ride.
They're essential to our well-being and happiness.
And he goes on to say that he would clap for her, create a stage for her, open doors for her, and die for her.
But he draws the line at disrespect.
It shows that love and support don't mean being a doormat.
It's about setting boundaries and communicating our needs.
Which brings us back to that key point about how men spell love.
R-E-S-P-E-C-T.
Exactly. It's about recognizing and valuing our partner's contributions.
Treating them as equals.
And then he shares another observation about communication.
Men speak in sign language.
While women are more verbal.
It's a humorous way of acknowledging those differences in communication styles.
It's a reminder to be mindful of those subtle cues.
To look beyond the words themselves.
And then he tells this really sweet story about Sarita passing out.
And how he insisted on riding in the ambulance with her.
Even though they told him he could follow behind.
It's a great example of his love and devotion.
His instinct to be there for her no matter what.
It highlights the importance of being a team, of facing life's challenges together.
And he goes on to make this point about how life is tough.
And it takes both partners working together to navigate those difficulties.
He reminds us that even when we make mistakes,
We still have value.
our worth isn't defined by our flaws.
Exactly.
And he emphasizes the importance of modeling healthy relationships for our children.
He talks about how his son learned to be a caretaker by watching him care for his mother.
It's a powerful reminder of how much our actions influence our kids.
They're always watching and learning from us.
And he circles back to that incredibly powerful message. $1 billion can't wipe your mouth.
It's about prioritizing the things that truly matter.
Love, family, connection.
Things that money can't buy.
And then he brings back that beautiful analogy of family as the gymnasium of love.
It's where we develop those crucial relationship muscles.
Where we learn to be more resilient,
More forgiving.
more understanding.
It's where we experience the full spectrum of human emotion.
And Sarita shares her story about feeling her children's faces after surgery.
She described it as heaven,
It's such a pure expression of that motherly love.
that instinct to nurture and protect.
And he describes it as a mama moment, a womb moment, a carrying them in my body moment.
It's beautiful. And then he shifts gears a bit.
Right.
He starts talking about the pain that many sons carry
When he calls mama hurt.
from feeling misunderstood or neglected by their mothers.
It's a reminder that family wounds can run deep.
And those early experiences can have a lasting impact.
He acknowledges that he too is flawed and imperfect as a father.
But he emphasizes his deep love for his children.
And he reassures them that he would never be jealous of their success or happiness.
It's a powerful message of acceptance and unconditional love.
And he encourages those who have experienced father hurt to find healing and support.
To find that sense of belonging in a loving community.
And then he asks Sarita to lead the audience in prayer.
Acknowledging her spiritual strength.
And encouraging those who are missing their mother's voices to receive it in her voice.
It's such a beautiful gesture, and he describes her as this incredible force.
A woman who has literally woken up in the middle of the night and gotten up out of a sickbed and rebuked devils off of our kids.
It's a powerful image of a mother's fierce love and protection.
And then he shares this really sweet detail about their relationship.
He talks about how she sleeps with her hand in his back.
The beautiful image of their connection.
A constant reminder of her presence and support.
Even in the quiet moments.
And then he brings us back to that theme of winning at home.
Right.
Making a clear distinction.
He says winning at home is not about winning on stage.
It's about those quiet victories,
The ones that happen behind closed doors.
the everyday acts of love and support,
The sacrifices we make for those we love.
the moments of connection and understanding.
And then he talks about his own experience with Alzheimer's.
Caring for his mother as she battled the disease,
It's a reminder that life can be incredibly challenging.
and that sometimes those challenges can feel overwhelming.
But he also emphasizes the importance of finding meaning and purpose in those difficult moments,
To see the beauty in the midst of suffering.
to find strength in the face of adversity,
And he talks about how he learned so much from his mother during that time,
about love,
about resilience.
about the enduring power of the human spirit.
And he encourages us to cherish the moments we have with our loved ones,
To never take them for granted.
because life is precious and fleeting.
And then he shares this really powerful message about the importance of forgiveness.
He says that holding on to anger and resentment only poisons our own hearts,
It's about letting go of the past.
and choosing to move forward with love and compassion,
And he emphasizes the importance of modeling forgiveness for our children,
showing them that relationships are worth fighting for.
even when things get tough.
And then he makes this incredibly poignant statement: $1 billion can't wipe your mouth.
It's a reminder that material wealth pales in comparison to the richness of human connection.
And then he brings back that beautiful analogy of family as the gymnasium of love,
Where we learn to flex those emotional muscles,
to develop resilience and empathy.
to experience the full spectrum of human emotion.
And Sarita adds to this beautifully with her story about feeling her children's faces after surgery.
She described it as heaven. It's a testament to that profound connection between a mother and her children.
That primal bond that transcends words.
And then he shares this powerful point about the nature of disruption.
He says that God often answers our prayers for growth with disruption.
It's about recognizing that challenges can be opportunities for transformation.
And he cautions us not to let those disruptions become distractions.
It's about staying focused on what truly matters.
And then he shares this amazing mantra that he adopted from Andy Young.
A blueprint for communication and conflict resolution.
I love this part. What is it?
He says, speak without being offensive, listen without being defensive, and always leave your opponent with their dignity, even in disagreement.
It's such a powerful framework for approaching any kind of conflict.
With respect and understanding,
And he goes on to talk about the importance of choosing our battles wisely.
recognizing that winning an argument isn't always the best outcome.
Sometimes it's better to choose peace over being right.
And he shares a personal anecdote about learning to control his own AK-47 mouth,
Realizing that words can have a lasting impact.
especially on those we love most,
And he talks about the importance of teamwork within a relationship,
of having each other's back.
especially when facing external challenges.
He shares this incredible story about Sarita Jakes leaping to his defense during an altercation.
It's a great example of that fierce loyalty and protectiveness that can exist within a loving relationship,
And then he pivots to the topic of parenting.
emphasizing the importance of unconditional love.
He urges parents to reject what he calls performance-based love,
It's about loving our children for who they are.
not for what they do or achieve.
And he makes this really thought-provoking statement. Your children may be the ones making life or death decisions for you one day.
It's a reminder to invest in those relationships
To nurture those bonds of love and trust.
because they will be there for us when we need them most.
And then he talks about his daughter, Cora, who went through a difficult divorce.
He acknowledges the pain and heartbreak that she experienced,
And he emphasizes the importance of offering support and understanding.
even when we can't fix the situation,
And he talks about how she wrote a book called Spiritual Warrior.
and how she faced intense criticism and backlash for it.
He even describes it as being attacked by demons from hell.
But he also highlights her strength and resilience.
Her ability to rise above the negativity.
And he talks about how the entire Jakes family has been nourished and strengthened by the conference.
It's a beautiful reminder of the power of community,
And he expresses his deep appreciation for Sarita,
calling her a mother in Zion, a strong woman, a Nubian queen.
celebrating her strength and resilience.
And then he makes this incredibly touching statement about his own mother.
He says, I've never met a mother I would put on the same level as my own until I met you.
It's such a beautiful tribute to Sarita.
Not just as his partner, but as a mother.
And he talks about how she makes him a better person.
How her calm and nurturing nature balances his more energetic personality.
It's a great example of how differences can complement each other in a relationship.
And then he shares this really sweet story about Sarita recovering from back surgery.
And how the first thing she said when she woke up from anesthesia was, "I can feel my children."
It's such a beautiful moment,
It speaks to the depth of her love for her children.
that primal bond that transcends physical limitations.
And then, in a moment of vulnerability, he talks about the pain that many sons carry
What he calls mama hurt.
from feeling misunderstood or neglected by their mothers.
It's a reminder that family wounds can run deep, and that healing those wounds can be a lifelong journey.
He acknowledges that he, too, is flawed and imperfect as a father,
But he emphasizes his deep love for his children.
and his commitment to being a present and supportive presence in their lives.
And then, to close out this part of the conversation, he asks Sarita to lead the audience in prayer
Recognizing her spiritual strength.
and inviting those who need it to find solace and support in her words.
It's a beautiful gesture that underscores the power of community and shared faith,
It's about finding strength in each other.
and about recognizing that we're all in this journey together.
Yeah.
As we wrap up our deep dive with Bishop and Sarita Jakes, I keep coming back to this idea of winning at home.
Hmm.
He really emphasizes that it's not about individual victories
Right.
or outshining your partner.
Yeah, it's not about keeping score.
Exactly. It's about creating that sense of mutual support and understanding.
That safe haven within your own home.
And he talks about the importance of recognizing the unique roles each person plays in a family.
And what's interesting is he stresses that these roles aren't about traditional gender expectations.
Right. He's not talking about the stereotypical man of the house or woman in the kitchen.
Exactly. It's about a more fluid dynamic.
Yeah.
Where those roles can evolve based on individual strengths and passions.
I love that. It challenges those rigid gender stereotypes that we often see.
It does. It's about moving beyond those preconceived notions.
Right.
And allowing each person to contribute in a way that feels authentic.
Absolutely. And he makes this really interesting comparison between church and family.
Oh, yeah.
He says that while the Bible describes the church as the church, family was the first thing that God created.
It really highlights that foundational importance of family, doesn't it?
It does. And he builds on that idea of connection.
Okay.
He says, when Jesus says to his disciples, when you pray, say, Our Father, he says it in part because he wants you to understand that we share the same Father,
It's a beautiful reminder that we are all connected,
Yeah.
part of this larger human family.
regardless of our differences.
Exactly. And he shares some anecdotes about his travels around the world.
Oh, yeah.
And he emphasizes the importance of stepping outside our comfort zones, of engaging with people from different cultures and backgrounds,
It's about broadening our perspective.
challenging our assumptions.
Right. And recognizing that beauty and complexity of the human experience.
He even talks about sending his son to Brazil for 3 weeks.
And he came back speaking Portuguese.
Exactly. It's a great example of the power of immersion,
Yeah.
of really opening yourself up to new experiences.
And then he talks about his daughter, Cora, and the challenges she's faced. And he asks the audience to show her support,
It's a beautiful example of a father's love.
that unconditional support.
And he reminds us that even those who seem to have it all
Yeah.
still experience pain and heartbreak.
Yeah. He talks about his mother again and choosing him to make her medical decisions.
A powerful example of that bond between a mother and son.
It is. And then he points out this interesting paradox. He says that sometimes the people we serve feel more comfortable confiding in us.
Then the people we love.
Exactly. It's like there's this barrier to vulnerability.
Even in those relationships that are closest to our hearts.
Yeah. It's a reminder that true intimacy requires safety and trust.
And that sometimes, even within families, we need to work on building that foundation of trust.
And then he circles back to that powerful image.
$1 billion can't wipe your mouth.
It's about getting back to basics,
To those essential human needs.
the things that truly matter in life.
And he describes family as the gymnasium of love.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Me too. It's where we learn those essential relationship skills.
Where we build resilience
Practice forgiveness.
and experience the full spectrum of human emotion.
And he reminds us that God often answers our prayers for growth with disruption. But the key is not to let those disruptions become distractions.
It's about seeing challenges as opportunities for transformation.
And then he offers that powerful mantra from Andy Young. Speak without being offensive. Listen without being defensive. And always leave your opponent with their dignity, even in disagreement.
It's a framework for approaching conflict with respect and understanding.
It really is. And in closing, he reminds us that we often treat those we serve with more grace and compassion than those we love,
It's a challenge to all of us to examine our own behavior.
to make sure we're extending that same kindness and understanding to our families.
Because at the end of the day, those are the relationships that matter most.
And he leaves us with this powerful image that the love and support we provide for our families will create a ripple effect.
One that extends far beyond our own lifetimes.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I hope you're walking away with some valuable insights and inspiration.
About how to build stronger, more loving relationships.
Remember, it's not about perfection.
It's about intentionality
It's about prioritizing those connections that truly matter.
and creating a space where love, respect, and understanding can flourish.
Until next time, keep diving deep.